The reverse learning technique is a really powerful hack that top creators use to master new skills in like half the time. Reverse learning flips traditional learning completely on its head. But I've got to warn you, parts of this technique might seem lazy. However, it's actually laser focused, not lazy focused, laser focused on getting you to your goals in the fastest possible time. To be honest, most actually lazy people will never even attempt this. Why? Because they don't want to put in the mental effort required. And hey, if that's you, no shame. You can stop watching and no one will blame you. Although, I guess if you stop watching at this point, I've just called you lazy. So, sorry? So, what is this reverse learning technique? Well, let me give you an example. Let's say you're planning a trip to France, but you're going in just 2 weeks. You have two options for learning French. Option A is to sign up for a French course that teaches, grammar and conjugation and vocabulary. Option B is to just memorize the 20 phrases you'll actually need to get around. Now, most beginners go for option A, thinking, it's the right way. They think they want to learn French, but experienced travelers, they go with option B. They don't want to learn French. They want to be able to have a successful trip to France. You see the difference? That's what the reverse learning technique is about. It's not about cutting corners. It's about focusing on what matters. And figuring out exactly what matters is surprisingly difficult. So today, I'll show you how you can use this technique to learn any skill quickly by doing just enough to get the results you want. And that's why it might feel a little lazy. If I need to learn a skill to achieve my goal, I should become an expert at that skill, right? Well, no. So let's start with a huge misconception. The biggest mistake most creators make when learning something new isn't learning too little, it's learning too much. Imagine you're a photographer and you just want to retouch your portrait photos so that they look nice. Well, you could sign up for a comprehensive Photoshop masterclass, but it'll probably overwhelm you before you even start. Most beginners think they need to know everything to succeed, but that's a trap. This is a game changer. When you're just starting out, trying to master everything is gonna hold you back. Instead, we're gonna focus on what's essential to get results right now. And by results, I mean get you to your goal. However, most of the time, you can't find an off-the-shelf course that is designed to get you to your personal goal. Courses on Photoshop or speaking French are gonna be really general because the teacher wants to, first of all, be thorough and also cover everyone's needs. But your goal is not to learn French. It's to learn enough useful French for your trip in 2 weeks. Likewise, your goal is not to learn all of Photoshop. It's to learn how to make your portraits better. This is the big takeaway. Your goal is not to learn the skill. Learning the skill is only a means to an end. So you're going to have to customize your learning so that it supports your goal without wasting time on fluff. And that is not something that you can buy ready-made. Okay, but how do you know which skills to need? That is a great question. And to answer that, you need to ask yourself 3 more questions. First, ask yourself, what's the minimum chain of actions that gets me to my goal? And I'll explain that. So you should start by working backward from your goal. For example, let's say you want to start a podcast. First of all, that's a horrible goal. And no, podcasting is fine. But the goal sucks because it's not specific. Do you really mean just start a podcast? Does it mean you've published it so that people can listen to it? Does it mean just one podcast episode? So define your goals and be as specific as possible. This will help you know when you've achieved that goal, but it will also help you tailor your learning to your specific goal. All right, here's a better and way more specific goal. I want to start a podcast and release 5 podcast episodes that people can actually download. That's a good goal. So let's work backwards from that. If I'm going to have 5 episodes of a podcast, well, I need actual recordings. I need to know how to get them to people. I need to know how to record the recordings, right? And I need to know how to actually make content so that I have something to record. That is your action chain. Or here's another example. Let's say I want to write a play that will be performed at a local theater. So think backward from that, right? What local theaters are in my area? How do local theaters decide which plays to perform? Do they actually take plays from local writers? What types of plays are they interested in? How long should they be? How do you write a play? That sort of thing. Your goal is not to become a playwright. It's to write a play for your local theater. Your goal is not to become an expert on podcasting. It's to release 5 episodes to an audience. The best way to do that is to figure out your action chain. So take just 2 minutes to jot down your own action chain. Brainstorm each step of the process, working backward from the goal. You can always fine-tune it later. Put them in the order in which you need to learn those skills. Now you've got your own action chain. The second question is almost as important as the first, and that question is, what knowledge can I completely ignore for now? Yes, one day you might become a world-famous playwright with musicals on Broadway and a movie deal in the works, but for now, you don't need those extra skills. So you need to find out what to avoid, because too much knowledge can be a devious trap. Now, knowledge is not a bad thing, it's a great thing, but your most precious resource is time. If you spend too much time learning things that won't move you towards your goal, you're wasting time. But knowledge can be seductive, and there are a lot of skills that are very worthwhile, and lots of people are learning them, but if it's a skill that's not useful for your goal, you need to skip it. Okay, take a look at your action chain. Do a little research. What are some skills everyone says you need for each step of your action chain? Like, for example, back to our podcast scenario. One of those items was, I need to get my podcast to people somehow. So distribution, right? Google something like best tips for podcast distribution. Then find a list and go through it. Ask yourself, do I actually need that to meet my goal? So some of these tips will be really useful, and you can file them like in a podcast distribution folder or something. But others will be interesting and seductive, but will not get you closer to your goal. Like how to upload video podcasts to YouTube, for example. If that wasn't part of your original goal, skip it. But more importantly, start making a siren list. Put that on your siren list. You remember the tale of Ulysses and the sirens? They attempted to lure him to his death with their siren song, but he resisted. Your siren list is a list of things that you should avoid at all costs. Not because they're bad or uninteresting, but because they do not move you closer to your goal. And if you don't want to call it your siren list, that's fine. Call it your no list, whatever. Your next question you need to ask yourself is, how do I subscribe to Matt's channel? And that is a great question. And the answer is, click that subscribe button. So the third question you need to ask yourself is actually a 2-part question, but it's all interrelated. So ask yourself first, what is the one skill I can learn that will have the biggest impact on my progress? And the other part is, what is the skill that is going to take the most time to learn? I mean, they might not very well be the same skill, but one of these skills, perhaps both, are what you should focus on first. You're either going to get the most amount of leverage in the least amount of time, or you're going to start early on a skill that's going to take a while to master. Take our local, playhouse writing example. The most impactful thing you could learn, the thing that might make or break your success, is finding out whether local theaters perform local plays and what sorts of plays they're looking for. Not that hard to find out, but really worth knowing before just about anything else. Meanwhile, knowing how to write and structure a play so that it actually works is probably something that's going to take a lot of trial and error. It might be time to get started on that skill right now. If you've ever heard of the 80-20 rule, you might notice the connection there. It's called the Pareto principle, and it states that 80% of the results come from 20% of the effort. Find the skills that will get you the most bang for the buck and learn those first. So those 3 questions. What's the minimum I need to get started? What skills can I ignore for now, no matter how tempting? And what one skill will give me 80% of my results? Or what one essential skill is going to take up 80% of my time to learn? Use those 3 powerful questions to create your own custom reverse learning course. All right, thanks for watching.